Well, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. I had a surprise. I went out to go and plant some ramps. And so I dug my shovel in and it stopped 2 inches deep. So the ground is still frozen. Ridiculous. Shoot, it's going in that deep. Let me see if in some of the areas it's kind of broken up, but those are not the places I want to plant ramps. These are wild ramps. And they do really well up here in Alaska. The problem is that where I've planted them, it's too easy for the geese to get them, and so they've kept them down. So I was going out in the forest, and of course the forest has less sun on it, on the floor. So it did not warm up as much as I thought it had warmed up. It's still been pretty cold up here. And we've been having an overcast and a lot of rain. And now I'm kind of worried about my bees, whether they actually made it. It was quite a disturbing to see them not moving. Sometimes just because they're in suspended animation or they're actually dead. I'll find out today and take a look at them. If not, I'm going to have to order more bees. But this year we're going to do it properly, where we're going to build an actual, like a Slovenian bee house. So the beehives will go inside the bee house. They'll be protected, but it's not going to be too much insulation. It's just enough, because you actually want, during the winter, because of food, you want them to actually slow down. By doing that, they extend their feed, and you don't have to go out there all the time giving them sugar. So I've been looking at that, but what the wild part is how's this big steel going on for you as they keep on doing what they're doing, which is they keep on distracting everybody. Now the distraction is getting even worse. Have you noticed that? And my question to you is, how are you paying attention to what they're doing, but at the same time continuing with what you need to be doing, which is to prepare? I mean, I've heard people talking about, oh, you got to run down to the supermarket and buy more canned goods and all this kind of stuff, as though you're going to live off preserves, you're going to live off stored food, as compared to have an actual lifestyle that has set you up. And this is even if you're stuck in the city. Remember, people got through the Depression by doing things like having planters on their windowsills, having access to the roof to be able to set up a garden up on top of an apartment. And it's interesting that a lot of places will not allow you to do that. The question is, what do you have with your lease, etc.? Or if you own the apartment, what is part of your homeowners association offering you? But we're at a point where people need to realize that food is not going to be coming. When I made the statement before about, fake news, fake war, fake famines, it's true. It's all fake because it's all contrived. That's where the fakeness comes. It's not natural. This is all contrived. It's all made up, and it's made up in order to direct the populace in the manner that they want to direct us, which is right now they're directing us towards chaos. That's the reason it's very important to understand how you have to think critically. And if you think critically, you focus on the information and you don't necessarily focus on the messenger. It's kind of like, don't shoot the messenger. Well, focus on the message. Don't focus on the messenger, because a lot of people I'm realizing are focusing on the messenger, and the messenger is thought of as becoming like a god or a hero or a celebrity because of that. And what you're doing is you're missing out on actually critically thinking about the message. Look at what the message is, understand what the message is, and then make your decisions, and most importantly, your actions on what the message is. My message that I keep on talking about is the idea of preparing and looking critically at the information that is coming to you from the government and through the media. And nowadays, as I told you before, you got to watch out with YouTube, because people think, oh, well, YouTube, it's just some guy just talking, from his fireplace or his wood stove. Or like Joe Rogan, it's just, he's one of us. He's not one of us. Tucker Carlson, he's not one of us. These people are placed. And they're placed because of who they interact with. Whose boards are they on? Is it like Tucker with the Pilgrims? Tied to the Bank of England? Is it Joe Rogan in Silicon Valley tied to Peter Thiel? And Alex Karp? Look at how... It's that old saying I say, wolves pack together. I say wolves pack together more so than birds of a feather. Because wolves, it depends on what kind of wolves you got. You got the wolves that are just vicious and they're just out there killing. Other ones just eat what they can and then they move on. These wolves that are out now, they're going for everything they can find. And you see these different packs and who they are and how they run. More and more, I keep on going down this rabbit hole with the different societies, like with Skull and Bones and the Illuminati, and then the Rothschilds as a clan family. Where even the name Rothschilds, that's not their name. Rothschild is just the title that they took over when their real name is Bauer. It's a very good old German name, Bauer. Kind of like, Bauer skates. When I used to play hockey. Can you believe I learned how to play hockey in Singapore when I was a kid? Yeah, it was wild. And we had good hockey players, especially because a lot of the oil riggers, they were from Edmonton and now, from Alberta and in Calgary. So a lot of these hockey players from Canada were on our teams, and their kids, my classmates, they were excellent hockey players. So you learn how to play hockey from Canadians. That's a good way to do it. In Singapore, of all places. Back in the 70s. Well, right now, you've got weird stuff happening, like this assassination. Have you noticed that more and more, as you look at the parallels, you got to understand how they're playing the game. So my interpretation, you might agree with it, you might not, is that during the previous administration, you had the Hunter Biden, the dementia, the losing his mind, and you had Hunter Biden. And the Hunter Biden is like what's now with the Republican Party, which is the Epstein files. So the same stuff that you had in the Hunter Biden case is now what you have in the Epstein case. And then you see the deterioration of Trump's mental capacity. And you see it. The only people who don't see it are people who are ignoring it. Remember what I talked about? One of the worst enemies, the most dangerous enemies you can have is normalcy bias. People with normalcy bias don't want to see what's happening. They don't want to see the changes. Remember, there is nothing in the universe that is static. It's always moving. It may look like it's not moving, but it's moving. You bring that something down to its very microscopic viewpoint, and you will begin to see where that movement is, even if it seems like it's not moving on a large scale. But everything is always moving. So you've got this situation with Trump, and you can see in the way he's interacting and the way he's talking. Even when they had, man, I'm telling you, it's like people talking about the last assassination attempt, and now they're talking about this one. And then I was watching Black Scout Survival, and how he was showing the frames where you see the guy running down, and it's an AI shift where he's got a sign, he's running with a sign, and then suddenly, whoop, he's still running, and then it disappears.
This is on Benny Johnson's X account. He's holding a sign, right? You can zoom in on that and make it a little bit easier for everyone to see, right? He's holding a sign, okay? And now he's running with the sign. Here he comes, guys. He's holding a sign, and his face swallows it. Where did his sign go? It's not on the ground. It's nowhere. His face swallowed the sign.
So it looks like it's AI created, or they cut a frame, but I don't. How would they do that? So they spliced a frame? It's weird. I'll see if I can download it and put it on here so you can actually take a look at it while we're talking. If not, I'll just put a link at the bottom. But it's just freaking weird. You look at that. Things are not making sense. And then it is making sense. Because if, remember, I've been talking about the whole picture. What are they doing? It doesn't matter what party's in there right now. They have taken over the country. And actually, they have taken over most of the world. They haven't taken over Iran yet. They took over Venezuela. That was quick. Do you see any benefit out of that? No. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, the price of fuel and all that kind of stuff. Price is going up rapidly here up in Alaska. And I'm paying attention, making my decisions on travel based on where the gas stations are. That's what's happening here. And I'm pretty sure in your area it's the same thing, where you're looking, you're making your decisions on how far you can travel. And what is their objective? 15 minutes cities. And the other one is you will have nothing and be happy. So the only way you could do that is you could drug them up, whether using traditional chemical drugs like marijuana and opium and heroin and fentanyl and all the different drugs that have been used to attack the United States for a lot longer than deep state back in the 80s, further into the 50s, further. You can see it. The origins of Yale, Elihu Yale, and where he made his money, and the East India Company. This goes so far back, and you look at this, and it's when you look at history from this point of view, we'll be talking about the drugs. Michael Yan and I are supposed to do a talk. We're going to chat on, and record it. We're going to chat on Thursday.
All these are all dog king strategies, right? And likewise, you see the same over in Europe, right? And so people are just like, this is my leader. What is this? You know what I mean? And so it demoralizes people. And again, it emboldens your enemies who are coming across the borders, because they know if you're that weak, they'll just take you, right?
And I'll release it, what depends, this can be 4:30 my time, it'll be 9:30 his time. And I'll decide whether I'm going to release it on that night or I'll release it so that it appears on Friday morning. But anyway, we're going to be talking about drugs and the drug war, the global drug war, and who's been running it and how it's been running. And why would you run a drug war? Remember, these people profit off death. The best business that they've found is the business of death and profiting off the business of death. And one of the ways is to steal the soul of people and steal the minds of people. And once you can control the minds, either through media and through TV. Have you ever wondered why TV, if you look at the pricing, this was taught to me years ago. I mean, I think I was back in high school when we were talking about economics, and it was just weird that TVs, all the way back in the 80s and earlier, that the price of a TV, in terms of the inflation on the price of it, is nowhere near the price of everything else. Why would something like that happen? Unless you wanted to make it more freely available. It's one of the things of, like, in all the places all over the world that I've traveled, I could go into a village. I could go in the most remote areas of the world. And you could still see an antenna, a TV antenna, when traditional before a satellite. You see a TV antenna coming out of a little hut. And then you see a whole bunch of people all gathered together and they're watching the latest novella or something. So they're already being programmed, even in the most remote areas of the world. And if you're able to do that, and if you've been doing it for decades after decades after decades, you own the people. And especially if you convince the people that the government is there to benefit them, and the government is coming to the rescue. Which is totally wild, because when I was younger, that was not what was taught in the United States, is the idea that you don't wait for the government to get things done. You try to make sure that you can do it yourself. that by the time the government arrives, it's going to be a bureaucratic mess. It's going to screw things up, and that's on the light side. The worst part is it's actually going to come in and it's going to destroy things that actually where you'd made some advances and you've actually improved situations. That's how it's gotten so twisted. It's gotten so twisted through stealing our education system, where they turn us into a collective. And by turning us into a collective, they push us towards socialism and trying to get everybody to believe that the United States is a democracy when in actuality it's a constitutional republic. And the importance of understanding the difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy is the understanding of Lenin when he said that it's important to have democracies because democracies are how you can bring in communism and socialism. Which is basically, if you can get a democracy going, you got a collective going, as compared to a constitutional republic that espouses individualism. But they've been whittling away heavily since 1935. They started in 1910 with Rockefeller. Remember, I've told you about Rockefeller and his education, the General Education Board, the GEB, the GEB that he created, where he donated $1 million of his money. Probably wasn't his money either, because these people never use their own money. They use yours and my money in order to pay our jailers. That's how that works. And our programmers. So, we're in a point right now where the next PSYOP is to show you that because there's a war in Iran, that your prices on your food and on your fuel are going to go through the roof. But remember what we know from Prouty, and Prouty says there is no, we won't run out of fuel. We won't run out of petroleum. So that means that the only thing that they're doing is they're just going to jack up the prices. And we've seen that before because, we had the war in the Middle East, and it was going to hey, everybody's going to benefit with lower fuel prices. Did we ever see that? No. We had better prices than over in Europe. But in relation to what has been stolen from you, remember, this is all about security. And the more security that you keep on trying to get, you realize you're not getting a security, but more importantly, you're losing your freedoms over and over and over. Everything that our founding fathers warned us about. So they didn't know specifically about the technology, but they knew that there are certain things you cannot give up. And if you give them up, then it's just going to be a snowball race all the way down to the bottom. And you're going to lose everything. And they are actively working as fast as they can because there are so many more and more people who are waking up, like I have, and hopefully you have, and you're sharing information with other people, trying to get other people to see what's really happening out here, that they won't be able to win. But then you've got other people that are actually happy. They're actually looking forward to them winning. These are the same people who went and already got their chips, where they were so delighted that they could actually have their own TikTok and they could go with their little chip in the wrist, embedded in their wrist, and walk by the cash register and just run their wrists with the embedded, and boom, they were paid. And it was so convenient. So now it's not even, people are willing to trade their freedoms for safety. They're willing to trade it for convenience. It's like my friend, I told you, he got the freaking the mosquito bite just so he could go hunting in Africa. When he told me that, I thought out of all the people, of all my friends, that he would not sell himself out, because that's what he did. He sold himself out. And for something like a hunt? And he'd been to Africa so many times before that. That was what was mind-blowing. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is a once in a lifetime trip. No, he'd been going back and forth to Africa all the time. It's just that now at that point you had to get the shot in order to go. And he did. I mean, think about it. So is that what a person is willing? So what is the price for a person's soul? That's a question we ask all the time. It's like, what is your price for your soul? But it's one of those things you've got to remember, that if you can at least retain your soul, that is the last thing that you can retain. Because your body goes, your wealth goes and comes and goes, depending on how you make it or lose it. Remember, there's nothing static. There is only one thing that is static, and that is your soul, or what you want to call your soul and awareness and a consciousness. Whatever that is, that's yours. Nobody can steal that from you unless you give it. When you give that, you're done. You're just totally done. And people do it in many ways. And it just floors me what they're willing to take for it. And most of it is not about sacrifice. It's one thing if you sacrifice yourself for someone, because when you do that, you aren't giving your soul. You're just sacrificing your body. Boom. But when it's the light, your own self, your own, goes far beyond the ego. The ego's down here. All this creation. That's why I recommended that book to read about the ego. And see how your egos, because you go through various egos that you create and then destroy, and create and then destroy. You had your ego when you were a little kid. You had your ego when you were in high school. You had your ego when you were in college. You had your ego when you were in your 20s and 30s, and you moved and you developed and you went through relationships, and then you went through you really understood your relationship with yourself and how you developed and how you went further on that. But remember, if you retain your actual inner self, if you know who you are and you have that strength, when you've got that refined, nobody can shake you off your balance and your integrity and who you are. And that's what's going to get you through. This is what's going to get you through, is you do not lose yourself. Because what is a sheeple? A sheeple is totally lost. They have no self. They go with the rest of the sheep. They'll go right off the cliff. If other sheep are running off the cliff, they will run right off that cliff. And if you're a human being, if you're a man and a woman, and you look at that and you say, what in the world are they doing? And they get freaked out by a raven. They get freaked out by a Tweety bird, and they're just running. And then the other ones are running. And then they're all running. You saw this during the pandemic, during the first test. You're now getting ready to see it as they begin to do the lockdowns. And I've showed you how to deal with the lockdowns is you have to be more and more independent. You know, one of the things I'm going to do more and more on the homestead, showing people how to do things like planting the ramps. And why plant ramps? Why plant something that's wild? Because it's a perennial. It'll come back every year. And we get to benefit and enjoy from that every year. That's why you do things. You don't do things that you have to plant. They die. And then you don't even leave some of it to go to seed so you can grab those seeds, and then you're independent. Most people, what they do is they continue to buy seeds every season. And worse is they buy the ones that are modified that they won't seed. They say, oh, but these taste better. They don't taste better. If you pick the right ones, they not only taste fantastic, but they also will give you the seed. And then once you have that seed, it's just like George Washington said, that no farmer should ever have to buy seeds after his second year. I think it was the second year. Yeah. Because you'll have enough seeds to be totally independent. Remember, this is the individualism that was created in this country, in the United States. This is what's supposed to separate us from the rest of the world. And now it's all flipped over. We are so reliant on the government. We are so reliant on the corporations. We are so reliant on our food and our heating and our sewage and our water. Except for those of us who separated. See how you can separate. That's the only way you're going to be able to do this, to survive what's coming. Because remember, they are doing this because their objective is to thin the population. Remember, I showed you that graph in a prior episode. Was it 2 episodes before? I think it was. Where you see the growth of the human population as the result of the innovations and productions of the petroleum industry, out of the oil industry, hydrocarbons, and how that exploded it from 1.5, where it was pretty steady for hundreds. So yeah, thousands of years, just floating along, and then suddenly, right when we hit that, boom, it just goes straight up. improved heating, improved medications, improved food options, less people starving. But see, that's the problem. All this, all this was going towards Ethiopia and Somalia and all these different countries. There's a reason that people die in these countries. There's a reason that people thrive in other countries. There's a reason that the environments change. Because if you went back to biblical times, all that area of Ethiopia and Somalia, that was Eden. That was the beauty. That was self-supporting, where you could just pick food and get food off the ground and out of the trees and everything, and you could just keep on going. As compared to where it is where you have to cut it out of the ground, you have to grow it out of the ground. And then we go back full circle, and then you do what we do, is we do permaculture here. We do forest gardens, where we interweave our food sources and our production through the environment, the ecology of the property. And then we modify the property in order to improve it. That's why you do like a hugel culture and hugel mounds, where you can create these mounds that retain water slightly, and also can even have trees growing, like lemon trees. In Austria, he grows lemon trees in the winter. They still keep on going because of the heat that's being created by the decomposition of all the compost and the logs and everything that are actually the base of the hugel mound. If you haven't had a chance, read up on hugel culture. Very interesting. But he's just the one that actually branded it. It's been going on for thousands of years. People knew how to do this. And what's been happening is that they've been dumbing people down to not know how to do this. You can go 2 or 3 generations back and boom, you say, oh yeah, everybody knows how to do that. And even now we have a situation, people don't know how to cook. That's why I'm going to start doing some stuff like, I'm going to cook a steak pommes frites with probably a black pepper sauce on it. I'll show you how to cook that. It's so freaking easy. There's no excuse to go to a high-end restaurant unless you have a friend who owns the restaurant and you just like to spend time. Like I did when I was in San Francisco. I could cook most of the dishes that I would go to restaurants. It's just I had good friends who owned the restaurants. Either because they were friends before they opened the restaurant, or because we became friends because I always like to connect with the owner of establishments and the people who work there. I'm just a very friendly kind of guy. I like to interact with people. Another skill that's being destroyed. Think about it. It's very insidious. All these people can't talk to each other unless they're texting. Parents not able to talk with their kids unless it's on the cell phone. And they're seated next to each other, and they're texting videos back and forth. That's how they're bonding. Instead of the old ways we used to do it, which is we just talk to each other and communicated. They're destroying that. So if you don't get practice at home on how to talk, verbally communicate with people, and then you're out and you get into your 20s and you never learn those skills because you went into computers or technology and you're just communicating on a computer. And then you go out to activities and you're at a point right now that maybe I would like to have children. I would actually like to interact with someone of the opposite sex. And you can't. And like you go there and you see these people. I've seen it. I've actually seen a generation where you just address them and they go running away because they don't know how to talk. And you say, oh, it's just because it's a generational thing. You're just so much older. You're just talking to these people. I'm just being friendly and talking, and they can't do it. But it's not just with me. It's like they can't do it with their own people. Unless they met on an app. This is how you thin the population, because if these younger kids are not getting together and they're not procreating, that's just like Bill Gates taking these mosquitoes and trying to neuter them and put them out in the population. And then we find out he wasn't really doing that. What he was really doing is he was creating various types of schemes, like to have mRNA infected mosquitoes going out and doing things to people. Another experiment. This is some evil crap these people come up with because they get God complexes. And you got to watch it because you think it's just the bad people who do it. But see, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, it's like a mutual friend told me about Tucker, and we're talking about Tucker, and then we're actually talking about Candace and all these people who have like a very religious understanding of the world, or they've taken up religion as like their salvation, like Sean Ryan, kind of like to remove his sins. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Like, is it a real cleaning of the sins, or is it really just this is a way for me to like do the old bait and switch? Yeah, it's kind of like, when you work as a counselor and you're helping people get off drugs and stay off drugs and alcohol, and then what they do is they don't take care of the problem. All they do is they just change the drug. So the drug goes from whatever they were using before to like smoking more or being sexually prolific, to the case of it's an addiction now. It's a new addiction. So it's like they switch sex addiction for the heroin addiction or the marijuana or the alcohol. You're just changing the addiction. You're not actually, or the addiction to God. Because it's not really God that they're connecting with. They're connecting with the religion of God. And the religion was created by man in order to interpret God. That's what and that's when it gets all twisted. And then when somebody finds out, wow, this is a great marketing venture. Ooh, if I'm suddenly touched by, it's kind of like with wealthy people. That's another thing. Wealthy people think that, oh, because I'm wealthy, that means that I'm favored by God. I'm blessed. Instead of the idea, well, no, you just made a lot of money. That's all it means. That's it. Don't take anything more out of that. It just means you have more money and you actually put your energy towards money. Other people put it towards other things. But yeah, so we're talking about like Tucker and what's happening? And it's like, well, when you have that amount of money and you're making like $5 million a year, he was already making $5-6 million a year at Fox News. We all knew that. But now he's got a religious bent. So now it's like he has a need to actually change the world. And it really doesn't take into consideration that there are other people on this planet. It's just that that's what you've got to do, what you've got to do. So there's this zealness. So it's not just zeal. It's over the top. So now it gets even more and more stronger. But it's interesting. And Jan and I will be talking about this. Because, yeah, Jan's been on freaking Tucker's. But Tucker's freaking a nicotine addict. So is his brother, Buckley. And if you saw their interview, they're talking about and how cigarettes. Here's something that was actually a holy tool. It's a spiritual tool of the native population in the Americas, the eastern United States. And it was a tool for enlightenment. And it's used in specific things. It's kind of like peyote. So people making like these peyote freaking milkshakes, in the 60s, and all these hippies are getting stoned and vomiting and all kind of stuff and finding God. And yet, originally, it was a tool that was used in order to help people and to heal, and it was used by the native healers. I'm very well versed in this. I've participated in the Native American churches' ceremonies. One of the key points is there's only one person that goes on the voyage. That's totally opposite of what it is in a party situation, right? Everybody's on a freaking voyage. In a healing event, the person who is going is to be healed is the one who goes on, or the one who's actually like it can be the healer who's going to try and get visions. But in the same way with tobacco, you'll notice that there's a use of smoke. I remember when I was first learning about tobacco, because I used tobacco, in the war, but it was just to smoke cigarettes, and it's just after battle, you just quick way to freaking just unwind and get down. Then you start to realize, I can do the same damn thing with meditation, and then you're not smoking and killing yourself with them. Especially with cigarettes that aren't freaking natural tobacco anymore. Because why? They're designed to get you addicted. So now it's gotten into the point of a corporate drug. It's a corporate drug for profit and a corporate drug for control. Because see what people will do when they're so addicted to nicotine. Perfect example. If Tucker and his brother were able to get off of it, they would have been able to get off of it. But instead of doing that, they transfer from smoking cigarettes to using the pouches. and keeping them under the lip or in their cheek or whatever. So it's the addiction. So what's the problem? What's the real problem? Not the symptom. Let's go to the real problem and fix the problem. That's the thing. When you do that, then you have real change. You have improvement. If you don't, then you have somebody who's still going in that circle or still going in that world, and they've never made any improvements. And when they're doing that, then they're also susceptible to influence. When they're susceptible to influences, then you start to question. That's the reason I question Tucker. That's the reason I question Sean Ryan. Well, I know why Tucker. I question Sean Ryan because I know for a fact he's an idiot. We haven't done that show yet. We're going to. I'm compiling a lot of stuff. I did find all the text messages back and forth between him and I when he was going to bring me on his show. And I think I have a pretty good idea. He just got too paranoid. He still thought that I was back with the guys we both worked for in 2 different wars, 2 different generations, which says a lot, because the agency of the GWAT was not the agency of the 80s, and it wasn't the agency of the 70s, and it definitely wasn't the agency of the 60s. But it was pretty close, if you know who the guys were in Central America and who the guys were in Vietnam. As I've said before, Central America was just Vietnam too. It's what happens when you don't win out there. They come to your door. And they did. And they used our own guns to do it. So all the guns that we left back in 75 in Vietnam, yeah, those guns showed up in Managua. And all those guns got transported over. And I showed you those pictures. Me doing interdiction, arms interdiction, arms smuggling interdiction in Parañas, where Boston whalers and again, listen to what the people are telling you, and you need to be really conscious of what they're trying to do. And this brings up the subject of what is the most important thing for you to understand is, when is it fear-mongering? And if it is fear-mongering, can you weed out the emotional fear out of what is fabricated facts, which means they're not facts, and what are real facts? And remember what I told you. Propaganda. This is the thing about Professor John. Professor John, he's giving you solid information. But it's what is the intent. And you look at the selectiveness of the intent. And the intent is to create chaos, levitate the chaos and fear. And then he'll do things like, oh, well, the way to deal with this is like better community. He's right. But in the end, it benefits China to have that. It doesn't benefit the United States. It doesn't benefit the free world. We're at war. We've been at war. When you understand war, you understand there are different kinds of wars. There's the information war. And if you can win on the information war, that saves you having to blow it on the kinetic war, which is totally disgusting that's what happened in Iran. That Trump allowed us, and that's the thing about it. He has no freaking control. He has no control, and you can see it in his actions. Look at his actions in this administration compared to the prior administration. It's just like with Reagan. You can see it. Reagan was a little bit more selective. He was still trying to get things done, but he was also freaking losing his mind too. So Biden, Trump, Reagan, you see it. You see it in the mannerisms, and you see it in the age. But most importantly, you see it in how it plays out in the actions that just seem absolutely absurd, which is, and this is the stupidity of the sheeple who jump in and say, oh yeah, finally we took it, we're attacking Iran. And it's like, why would you go after Iran? And he's, oh, well, because they're just the root of all the freaking terrorism in the world and everything. They're the root of all the terrorism because of all the things we've been doing in the Middle East at the behest of the city of London, going all the way back to the 30s. And then they brought us in, and Truman brought us in. with the creation of Israel. And the only reason that Israel was created by atheist Jews, otherwise known as Zionists, which is just like freaking atheist Christians, which are Zionists, they call them just themselves Judeo-Christians, is solely to fill the coffers through the petroleum companies for the Bank of England. It's always been like this since the Rothschilds took over the Bank of England and took over the City of London. Remember, Jews still were living in the City of London. But when the Rothschilds came in, they weaponized banking. Banking was never weaponized until the Rothschilds took over. Bauer was the one. Amschel Bauer was the one who weaponized. This is the thing of trying to get this across. It's not the idea that they're central bankers. If you're a central banker and you believe in your nation and you are the banker for that nation, then it's good. That's what we had in America under Lincoln. And that's where the greenback comes from. But we didn't, after Lincoln was killed, that was the end of the greenback. And boom, that was the beginning of the major attacks on the central banking system in order to get us under the globalist New World Order. Because remember what Amschel Bauer said, I care not for who the politician or the leader or the king is, as long as I have control of the currency. If you control the currency, you control the country. And that's what all this has all been about. It hasn't been about oil. It hasn't been about terrorist actions and clearing out the terrorists. It's always been about the banks. If their bank is not under the control of the globalist conglomerate of central bankers, it goes to Basel and goes to the City of London, then it has to be taken out. That's what happened in Libya, Syria, Iraq, Iran. It's about the banking. And that's going to be interesting because if they push us onto the digital banking, look out. It might be a point that you're not going to be able to go and do things because you still want to have your freedoms, and you're going to use currency of actual fiat currency still if it's going to be accepted by other people. Remember, it's how it's accepted by the other people. Will somebody take what you represent, just like with gold and silver? If other people don't believe in your gold and silver, even though it's real gold and silver, but they don't believe in it, they won't accept it. So think about what's happening right now. Look at all the shenanigans they're playing of trying to distract you. They've got you with the war in Iran. They've got you with the price of the fuel. They've got you with the fears of the food and the food shortages. There's something real which is happening, which is the solar minimum. We haven't even really talked about the solar minimums. The solar minimums are going to even more contribute. That's the reason they were doing the global warming, but now they have to do global change because everybody, and it's just a joke because it's always going to be global change. But the thing is, how do you prepare for something like this? You don't prepare for global cooling in the manner that you would prepare for global warming. Global warming does not kill you, but global cooling will kill you if you're not prepared. That's the reason I moved to Alaska. I moved to Alaska in the same manner that I've said to many people that I've advised. If you don't want to live in Alaska, go and live in a place which is warmer and temperate, but a place that is third world, which means that they have a high poverty line. The high poverty line is going to be a salvation because of extremes. I'm going to talk about it later, about how extremes kill. Just like with temperature, if you just move in a slow transition from one temperature to another, it's fine. But 2 years ago, we lost our bees because the transition was too fast. We had horrible, like -5 days, and then we'd have 2 or 3 days of just below freezing. You can't do that. And flipping over above freezing. And it was so drastic. It happened so fast. It even killed trees. I've got one tree, it's blown up from the inside. It shattered from the inside because it was just too much of a shift. The reason I live in Alaska is because I knew about the solar minimums. Anybody who's studying it knows what's coming, which is there's going to be a new ice age. But I'm hearing I think it was the Maunder minimum, that Alaska actually was warmer than the rest of the world. Which not to say much, because it was still cold, but it was warmer. So remember, it's relative. But in the same way that I suggest of poverty, you want to go to a place where when you have an economic collapse, it's going to be worse in the first world because we've had such a level of abundance and affluence. When you suddenly drop down, like we did in the 1930s from the 1920s, where people were making hand over fist on the stock market, and then, like now, and then suddenly it goes down, that's where things get so painful. But if you've had a level of poverty and it's just like a blip, oh, there's a little bit more poverty, but you've already been in poverty, you don't feel it because you're accustomed to it, so you're prepared for it. And if you have your own personal affluence, you do well. In the same way that if I've been living in Alaska and I've got everything good to go and everything's been taken care of for the last 10 years, and all my animals have been bred specifically on this property to survive. The ones that didn't make it, they don't make it for a reason. So the chickens that we have are a variety of different species, right? And then the types of pigs that we had, a specific type of species. Even my turkeys are a specific cross to survive in the coldest winters, and yet be able to live off just about anything. They go out and they free roam. And then at night, they come back, and then they roost right next to the chicken house. They don't even go inside anymore. As a matter of fact, they don't do well inside the chicken house. We've learned. They actually do better living in the wild close to us because we don't kill them. You know, the neighbors, if they go off, the neighbor will shoot them. And I'm going, what an idiot. You could have, kept that turkey. Maybe another female would come by, and then you've got your own stock. So think ahead. This is the thing. This is another thing that's really important because people here up in Alaska, they see something and they'll kill it. And these are people, oh, but we don't have that much money. Oh, well, you still have programs. You can go and get free food. So there's no excuse for that. When you could have actually let the animal live, continue to increase in population, and then you'd actually have stability. But instead of that, short-sighted, just kill it. That's how stupid people can be. Same thing in Montana, same thing in Idaho. They'll just go and kill an animal. Oh, well, I got to put it in the meat shed, Yeah, so you got this immediate gratification instead of looking at the long term. Think of the long term. Remember, I came back here in 2012. I started thinking about doing this in 2008. It didn't just boop, here we are. Just because you have the money, just because you have the time, don't think it's just going to happen immediately. Even Teal, he's got his bug outs all over the world. Well, he's not accustomed, unless he's living at that bug out that he's planning on being, he does not have a bond to that place. You need to have a bond. Because when you have a bond to it, then you know when things are out of place. It's just like one of the areas I used to hunt. I would always pick, like back in California, I could tell just by looking at a hillside what was out of sorts. And what was out of sorts a lot of time would be a buck that just happened to be on a hillside, or a bear. So I would recognize while other people are just going along and they're going too fast with their glasses and they're just with their binoculars and they just keep on looking and they don't recognize because they don't see something that's out of whack, something that doesn't look right because it wasn't there before the last time I was there. You always do that. You should be doing that when you come to your home, when you come to your house. Is the door ajar? Was the door the way it was when you came in, when you left? Was it locked the way you had locked it? Smart people put little things like feathers or pieces of paper in their door when they leave. So when they come back and it's already on the floor but didn't fall over, that means somebody had come in there. You do things like this because it helps you be aware and enables you to make decisions before the decisions are made for you. So again, going back to the decisions being made for you, this is all about fear-mongering and being able to survive through the fear-mongering to make critical thinking. Think critically and not be allowed. Don't allow your mind to be hijacked by the play-acting assassination of Trump again. The play-acting of Oh, there's a war on the other side of the world. Are people dying? Hell yeah, people are dying. But it's not being done for the Iranians or the control of the Iranians other than to take out their bank. Because they took out all their leadership. It didn't do a damn thing, did it? But what it did do is it kicked the hornet's nest. And by kicking the hornet's nest, they're going to react in the same manner, which is they're going to rely on, oh, we got to get our people all ramped up in fear-mongering. And then they're going to try and jack up the terrorist actions if they can. But don't worry about it, because if Deep State has got their thumb on the pulse, they will create their own local false flags to make it look like the Iranians did it. Just like the Zionists did with 9/11. And that, I mean, if you know anything about explosives and controlled demolitions, you know what you saw during 9/11. Did a plane hit it? Yeah, a plane did hit it. Is that what took it down? No. What took it down were the explosives that are already planted there to make it come down beautifully. I mean, that was skill. The demolition expert on that one was primo on all the buildings. Yeah, it was Building 7. Yeah, what was over there? That's just like with Clinton and was it Kansas City? Yeah. They play these games. They're always in control of the stage. And you're just in the seats watching the play. The question is, do you let yourself be so taken in by it that you forget that you're watching a play? And so then you make your actions based on that and then go deeper and deeper into their trap? Or will you remain clear thinking and you will look at what's happening and you will then make your actions and not constantly reacting emotionally, financially, physically to events that are just designed to steal your mind and control you? And they do it through the media. Watch everything that they're doing. See what it is and see where they want you to go. That's another thing to be really good at, is to see where they want you to go. Where do you think they're wanting us to go right now with the increasing of fear about food shortages and all that kind of stuff? Because they're not telling you how to freaking grow your own food and all that kind of stuff. They're just trying to get you all ramped up and freaked out so that you get to a point where you just start going into chaos mode, and then people will just start stealing from each other. Then the response to that is going to be shots of defense. And then you have the full-on chaos that they really want, and that's another way to continue. So they're attacking our population by getting people to not be able to communicate because they've gotten so technically oriented that you can't even have a conversation with a person on the street and actually have a good interaction and not have the other person like, oh, I can't talk. They're acting like Japanese. So, but the Japanese do it not because they don't know how to communicate. It's because they don't want to be disrespectful. It's a respect thing. So they don't want to communicate with you because it's not the condition, it's not the environment. If you're just like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, and they'll quickly look away. There's a shyness involved, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of like the kids now in the rest of the world. So you got to ask this, did somebody like study how it is in Japanese culture, and then they go, let's whip it over. And let's try it in the West, where people in the West can't communicate with each other. They do these games, and they keep on doing these games, and it's all to keep us following the ball. As long as they keep you following the ball, you're not looking at the one who's controlling and manipulating the ball. That's all it's about. So look at it. Think about it. What's been happening last week? Look at what happened with the play act of the Trump assassination. And who is this guy? A NASA? And he's like proud of like the IDF. And then suddenly that picture is removed, where they remove the flag, the IDF flag. There is some, this is just, when it's so garish and it's so much in your face, you got to wonder. It's just like somebody losing their control, where they when they realize they no longer have control, they just get angry and they get more and more furious in their need to control the conversation, that they'll do everything they can. Kind of like when I was telling you about when I was working for that stock trading company in San Francisco, where the guy was yelling on the phone because he was losing his client, and I was floored that he was actually losing his mind and screaming at this client, because any sane person would have just clicked. But who knows? Certain people need that, and they'd stay on the conversation and then probably even give the guy the money. Don't be that guy. On that note, look clearly. See what's really happening. See how these people are just playing these games on the populace, and see how you can make it. Like I said, it was great. I took a week off. I didn't, because in order to do these, I have to go in and look and see what's happening. Well, boom, there is another one from Black Scout Survival. I mean, I'm impressed, because he's got to look at this every freaking day. He's just cranking it out. He's making money off his shows. He's making money off the T-shirts he's selling, the knives that he sells, and more power to him. Simplify. But damn, I'd freaking lose my mind if I had to keep on looking at that shit, because that's what it is. It's crap. And my purpose, I'm realizing, is that I'm just trying to help people just take a deep breath. Don't get drunk. Don't get stoned. Just take a deep breath. Look clearly what's happening. Process it in your mind. When you can actually consciously take it into your conscious mind instead of letting it play in your subconscious mind, you take out 80% of their effort. And then you are taking back your life. The more people who do this, the better chance we have of all us taking action in clearing these people out. So on that note, God bless, and watch your six.